I'm black too, and as such, this being my ethnic culture as well, I have a right to have something to say about what I'm seeing going on.
What is the black culture? What is our identity? How do we coexist into society and into the world and such, right? And upon thinking about that, you hear a lot about how they're saying that whatever we consider as black culture has been declining. If you think, whether yes or no, if you believe the black culture is declining, but also, what do you think are some components for people to think that black culture is taking a decline nowadays?
Oh man, that's a charged question. First and foremost, I think and it kind of parallels to some of the things that I'm talking about currently in class, and I won't get into, but I think the thing of it is that there's not two competing ideologies, but the existence, for the way American society is set up, is that you got the American culture and the individualized type of thing that we kind of push upon people within American culture, and which runs exactly opposite from the black culture, which is more about being communal, being around people, being fellowship, the experience of uplifting one another and being around one another, which is a human thing, but really a black thing, particularly in America, just because, again, coming from slavery, that's kind of our DNA of having to uprise and to lean on one another to see ourselves be elevated in certain spaces. So I think I think the thing of it is that I think American culture kind of pushes for people to be just much more individualized. This individualism, capitalistic type of ideology is kind of ingrained. I think it's innate. It's not really something that people think about because it's been going on for so long, but I think it's becoming more and more ingrained by generations. I think within black culture, I think it's tough because I think when you think of culture, you think of music, you think of hairstyles, you think of ways of living and all those other things. And I think from that perspective, particularly when it comes to music, I think there is a kind of a different like idea of how we're starting to express ourselves. And I think it again, people aren't really used to that, if that makes sense. So um just I'm not to, I'm a big trap and hardcore drill music. Like I love that type of music, but I understand how that ingrains into the different cultures, and to understand that people don't like that because that's what is being projected to the world, and that's what people are thinking outside if you're not a black person within the community. And so I could see how people want to push back on that, like, why are we talking about these guns, killings, drugs, all that stuff? I'm of that proponent, but I just appreciate it as an art rather than a lifestyle. But I understand people do that as a lifestyle, and I've been around that. So I think the thing of it is that we have to reassess as a community, and what the components is just the competing ideology of individualism. And I think just the lack of exploration. This is my main point, is that we're not encouraging, for one, there's a multitude of reasons, and I won't get into it now, but there's a multitude of reasons of why we're not encouraging people to explore their blackness in more detail, their roots, their neighborhoods. It doesn't even have to go so far back, and to appreciate those things. So the more we get away from community, because as we grew up, community was a huge thing. The block parties and all those other things, like those were a staple. And now with the new world, is we've gotten away from those things. So I think there's just a shifting component, and I think that the black pride that's within the communal spaces has degraded to just celebrations within just holidays like this, rather than it just being a common occurrence that we saw when we were growing up. And again, there's a multitude of reasons that we can get in.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get into my point, definitely encourage the viewer, anyone watching this, comment down below your thoughts. Again, this is supposed to be an open platform, a community building, sorry, a community building channel. So definitely want to hear your opinion, what you see. We can only speak from our perspective, but who knows what lives people have lived and what they can share to help other people out. So definitely let us know what you think about this topic and put your 2 cents into it for sure. What I would say is um, you can argue it both ways. but we'll just speak on the decline, on like what I interpret people are seeing, right? I don't
Hmm.
think it's a decline as in the culture of a whole. I think it's a decline of what part of the culture we're showcasing. That's why I think it, and it has to do with social media, of course. So the big thing, me and you talk about privately when we're talking about growing a channel and stuff, and my points are like, hey, negativity sells, and a crazy, very out of pocket, very extreme thinking person is going to get more views than someone who's level headed. That's just how the algorithm's going to work for you. More people are going to comment, more people are going to have something to say. It's going to get bigger, right?
Right.
And I think to a degree, that's kind of what, yeah. And to bring it full circle, I think that's kind of what you see with the culture is that the things that people see on social media of the culture are always going to be negative based, always going to be extreme, always going to idolize a lower income status. When in reality, as a culture, there's a separation of class, and that's not a bad thing. It just has to do with socioeconomics, right? So the one thing that me and Jordan like to joke about in a while, here and there and stuff is, how I talk, right?
Hmm.
Because I talk very proper, but part of the reason I talk proper is, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and I was fortunate for the school system and everything that I have. Not to say that I couldn't code switch, but I do it way less than you would say other people would do it, right? So,
Right.
in saying that, though, um, that's where I think the decline is that there's not a big distinguish of class on social media. So then a lot of people just assume Black culture is only going towards one way, right? So the very
Right.
rich people you see on social media act just like the very poor people that you see on social media. And that creates a lot of confusion on what the culture is and what we're about and everything like that. But I do want to make it a point within Black culture. There's just as much good as what you would consider as bad in the culture, just like any other culture. Just because it's not being shown on social media doesn't mean it's not happening, right?
Right.
Like one big thing that's never getting shown on social media is the economics of Black Americans and how we're thriving, how there's whole communities, how there's Black businessmen, Black philosophers, Black scientists doing groundbreaking work, Black engineers, all of that clubs for it, everything, right? But it just doesn't get showcased. So it's hard for people to actually see and hear that things like that are actually going on unless you're in that lifestyle, you're around these types of people, right? So that would be my point. If there is a decline, that's where I see the decline of is the showing of the other side of Black culture on social media has been lacking for sure.
I think you're on the. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and I'll be quick with this so we can move along with the episode. But in saying that though, like there is, like you said, negativity sells, and the thing of it is that there's a lot of great things that are going on within the Black culture. I know there's always a meme floating around there about how when somebody get the job, they get like 3 likes, and then they portray something that's negative and they got a whole bunch of comments and all that type of stuff. And I get it from a psychological aspect of why people are attracted to these things and the conditioning that we have been exposed to within this country. Not to get into the ins and outs of that, but just saying I can get why. But in saying that though, there is a bunch of things, even within my community, there's so many great things that's going on. And then you'll touch on that, right? Like we'll highlight that for a second. And then guess what? Like the next day we off of it, and not knowing that these things take, not only are these people working against the grain because there's a lot of negativity going on, but like it's taking years to build these positive things, and then we get like a 3 minute segment of something positive that's taken 5 years to accomplish, and then people just totally forget about it, and now we on to whatever the next thing again, that negativity that's going to sell to get us the rating. So that's important for us to keep pushing the moving the needle and to make sure that positivity is starting to sell just on the same rate. But this is kind of the reality where we are, and we kind of have to deal with the reality while also working on the ways of combating those things as well.